Lucy Letby was entrusted to protect some of the most vulnerable babies. In her hands, innocuous substances like air, milk, or medication like insulin would become lethal.
Oh, Lucy, is it?
Yes.
Hello, my name's Chest, please. So please step into seconds.
Lucy Letby was known as the hardest-working nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital in the UK. She also had that goody two-shoes face with blue eyes and a bright smile that made people feel in safe hands. In fact, her face was so friendly that she was used as the hospital's campaign to raise money for a neonatal unit. A neonatal unit that Lucy would be working at, except Lucy was not who she portrayed herself to be. At home, she had post-it notes reading, "I did it," and diary entries obsessing over her fellow doctor, who was married. She also had a baby room, although she had no children of her own or in her immediate family. A former nurse has been charged
10 counts of attempted murder following an investigation into baby deaths at the Countess of Chester Hospital.
30-year-old Lucy Letby has been rearrested as part of an investigation which began in 2017. It took several years for Lucy to finally be arrested, and then some more years until there was enough evidence to convict her. Had it taken shorter, she would have taken fewer innocent lives. Why would a nurse, whose job it was to care for babies, murder and harm them in the hospital where she worked? Let's explore the tragic story of Lucy Letby, her 7 victims, and see if the number is actually higher. In the early hours of July 3, 2018, 28-year-old Lucy Letby opened her door to intense knocking. It was a pair of officers demanding to speak to her. It's unclear what they spoke about indoors.
Hello, Lucy, is it?
Yes.
Hello, my name's Chest, please. So please step into seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Shortly after, Lucy was taken out in handcuffs. Lucy did not seem fazed by being charged with murder. She joked around with the officers and complained that her knee hurt when she stepped into the police car.
Just had knee surgery. Oh, right, okay.
But inside the interrogation room, she would deny everything vehemently. In fact, she said she was offended that the officers would even think she was responsible for a baby's passing. When the detectives asked her why she was there when he died, she said, "Because I'm always on shift." Unlike the other nurses at the Countess of Chester Hospital, Lucy had no family, children, or partner. She lived alone and had dedicated her whole life to taking care of babies. At least that's what she said. That was why, according to her, she'd picked up more shifts than other nurses. It was a simple odds game. She even raised her voice at the detectives, blaming the hospital for framing her. She said the hospital was trying to explain their incompetence by framing the nurse who is the most qualified and the most hardworking of the lot. She was being treated unfairly, but babies had been dying at a shocking rate at the Chester Hospital since Lucy had started working there. After 2 years of infuriating delays, the hospital finally decided to start an investigation. But it would take another year for a case to be built against Lucy, well enough for an arrest warrant. And even then, there was insufficient evidence to keep Lucy locked up. You see, the baby's deaths could not be connected to a clear cause, and some were, well, pretty vague, and could not be connected to Lucy. Lucy Letby was entrusted to protect some of the most vulnerable babies. In her hands,
Innocuous substances like air, milk, or medication like insulin would become lethal.
3 days after her arrest in July 2018, she was released on bail. However, the investigation continued. Lucy would be arrested and released one more time in 2019, then arrested for a third and final time in November 2020. In the 5 years between her employment and final arrest, she inflicted more harm than anyone could have ever imagined. The investigation would reveal a deeply troubled angel of death who saw the NICU unit as a means to her demented desires. Lucy Letby was born in 1990 in Herefordshire, UK, the only child of Susan and David Letby. She attended a comprehensive school in the area and in 2011 got her pediatric nursing degree. The first impression was, that was pretty much it with Lucy. She was a perfectly normal young woman from a perfectly loving family. She didn't snap at people, and none of her friends remember her being particularly resentful or short-tempered. One of her neighbors remembers. I've seen her grow up. She seemed a lovely woman. So this news is deeply and utterly shocking. I can't fathom it. When you hear of these sorts of things, you always get one or two people saying, I thought there was something fishy about them. But with Lucy, all you will hear is positive things. Back to Lucy's 2018 arrest. You see, there was not enough evidence to keep her in jail at that time. But that doesn't mean the investigators didn't speak to everyone she knew. And over 1 year, they gathered a long list of really disturbing testimonies from her fellow nurses and doctors. Since the Chester Hospital employed her in 2013, many nurses and doctors found Lucy annoying. She was hardworking, sure, but a bit too hardworking. She would force herself into other nurses' shifts and act as though she was better at her job than anyone else there. Then, the doctors started noticing how Lucy was always in the same room as the dying babies. What's more, a doctor told authorities he was disturbed by how he found Lucy acting busy but doing nothing, while a baby right next to her was dying. And remember that time 2 lives were lost in 2 days? That's when Lucy texted a nurse. It wasn't a great start to the shift, but sadly, it just got worse. I'm struggling to accept what happened to baby Andy, and now we lost baby Charlie overnight, and it's just all a bit much. I know it happens, but it's still so sad and cruel, isn't it? How disgusting is this? She had taken these lives and then used the opportunity to complain about her struggles with it. Another nurse testified to a terrifying incident. After one of the babies started flatlining, their family was quickly called to the hospital. By the time they arrived, they were told there was nothing the hospital could do to save their life. So the parents cradled their baby one last time, trying to comfort each other through the very difficult moment. That's when the nurse saw Lucy watching them from a window down the hallways. The parents had noticed Lucy and were feeling deeply unsettled about this. So the other nurse asked Lucy to leave, but it looked like she got off on it. And other parents testified to this too. Several families felt Lucy enjoyed being the harbinger of tragic news. Someone else testified, an unnamed doctor. Let's name him Dr. B for this video. Well, Lucy and Dr. B were pretty close. So close that they were often texting each other outside their shift hours, with Dr. B applauding Lucy for her hard work and showing sympathy for the ordeal she was going through. We've lost 2 babies I was caring for, and now this happened today. Makes you think, am I missing something good enough? Dr. Lucy, if anyone knows how hard you've worked over the last 3 days, it's me. If anybody says anything to you about not being good enough or performing adequately, I want you to promise me that you will give my details to provide a statement. I don't care who it is, and I don't care if I've left the trust. Promise. Dr. B trusted Lucy with his life. He simply couldn't see how she could be a monster. This is another text investigators found on his phone. Doctor, you are one of a few nurses across the region. I've worked pretty much everywhere that I would trust with my own children. Lucy. I don't know what to say. Thank you. It's simply shocking how much Dr. B trusted Lucy, and the closer they got, the more attention Lucy required from him. Every time a baby would die, she would act guilty and ask Dr. B for the same reassurance. No, it could not be her fault. She's an angel. As the years passed, more parents testified to Lucy preying on them while they were trying to say goodbye to their babies. She would walk in and out of the room, ask them a million questions, and slam things around. She would not only steal their babies, but their chance at closure. By 2020, the detectives finally had Lucy's MOs lined up. They had probed 13 deaths and concluded that some babies had been unalived with a feeding tube shoved down their throats. Others by inserting air bubbles into their veins, and others with huge amounts of insulin added to their feeding tubes. Lucy Letby was entrusted to protect some of the most vulnerable babies. In her hands, innocuous substances like air, milk, or medication like insulin would become lethal. Almost smart. They could easily pass as accidents, but they didn't. And Lucy was arrested and charged with 8 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder. She would only be convicted of 7 counts. Still, as she remained silent, the question remained. Why did she do it? Sometimes the healthcare serial killer will say that
I was actually being merciful. This person was in a great deal of pain, and I was just ending quickly. Other healthcare serial killers have often just wanted, because the unit is under such pressure, they just try to get rid of difficult patients.
But these babies were not in great pain, and they had a whole life ahead of them. The answer was found when the officers visited Lucy's home with a search warrant. It was a cluttered space filled with notes, objects, and patient files, which are illegal to take from the hospital. Lucy also had a baby room, with a bed and everything, except she had no babies or children in her family. When the detectives started looking through her notes, they had a bingo moment. In the notes, Lucy complained about how she would never get married or have a family of her own. Why? She was evil, she wrote. She also wrote, "I did this, and I killed them," on a small, sticky note. For the prosecution, this was her admission. But her defense team argued that this was not Lucy's admission to taking the babies' lives, but her interpretation of the guilt she felt from losing them on her shift. On other notes, detectives found obsessive rants about Dr. B. Lucy was infatuated with him and she hated how he was married. When Dr. B took the stand, he said he had no idea about this. He thought he and Lucy were friends. The prosecution speculated on Lucy's motive. One theory was Munchausen's by proxy. Lucy would take the babies' lives so she could text others and complain about how tough her life was. She wanted to be comforted like the babies she wasn't willing to. Get under his skin. Finally, a former nurse has been charged with 8 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder following an investigation into baby deaths at the Countess of Chester Hospital. 30-year-old Lucy Letby has been rearrested as part of an investigation which began in 2017.
Murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 6 others. In the case of one of them, trying on separate occasions 2 weeks apart to murder her. You are now to be sentenced for your crimes.
Lucy will spend her whole life in prison. She has done a world of evil, and a lifelong sentence can never make up for it. Hey, thanks for tuning in. What other evil nurse cases do you know? Let me know in a comment, and before you go, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more.